Yes, people, it's your boy Dan back again with another video. Welcome back to the channel. Sorry I've been away a little bit, just been busy. But yeah, welcome back, man. Today's going to be a bit of a different video. I'll get back to the Quran reactions probably after this video. But today, we're going to be looking at the Hindu Vedic Text, the Vedas. Most specifically, the Upanishad. The Upanishad is the most recent Veda, the most recent being the latest of the Vedic texts. So it's the Upanishad, the Holy Spirit of Vedas from Hinduism. I'm going to be reacting to the first 15 minutes of that. Because as I said, I'm not just going to be reacting to Islamic stuff, I'm going to be reacting to Christian stuff, Hindu stuff, Jainism, Buddhism, Law of One stuff, all sorts of stuff. So yeah, today is going to be the Holy Spirit of the Vedas, the Upanishads, from the Hindu religions, from the Hindu Vedic texts. So yeah, but before we get into it, let's, as all of you know, I'm half Mauritian, so half of my family are Hindu, so I do know a bit about Hinduism, obviously from my own study and my own research as well. But yeah, man, let's actually understand what the Upanishads are and the Hindu Vedic text, and that some of the key principles about Brahman and the ultimate reality and God and the gods with a small g and the goddesses. Because I think a lot of it is kind of misinterpreted and it gets misconstrued and it gets taken as a polytheistic religion and it's very confused. Obviously there are certain sects in Hinduism that I guess some people would describe as polytheistic, but for the main orthodox Hindus it's not polytheistic. Brahman is the name that they give to God. God is that's the supreme God, the supreme reality, the supreme creator. Brahman. So I know you hear about Krishna, Shiva, Brahma. These are gods with a small g. All of them are. Brahman is the one God, the one ultimate creator in Hinduism. So let's have a little read about the history of let's just have a look at what Hinduism is about. A little brief read over about the Vedas. So Veda, Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda, Atharva Veda. The Vedas, which is Sanskrit for knowledge, are a large body of text originating in ancient India, composed in Vedic Sanskrit. The texts constitute the oldest layer of Sanskrit literature and the oldest scriptures of Hinduism. The Vedas are aparusaya, not of human agency. They are supposed to have been directly revealed, and thus are called Shruti, what is heard, distinguishing them from other religious texts, which are called Smriti, what is remembered. The Vedic texts, or Shruti, are organized around 4 canonical collections of metrical material known as Samhitas, of which the first 3 are related to the performance of yajna, which is sacrifice. In historical Vedic religion, you have the Rig Veda, containing hymns to be recited by the Hota, or the presiding priest. The Yajur Veda, containing formulas to be recited by the Advayu, or officiating priest. The Samat Veda, containing formulas to be sung by the Udgata, or the priest that chants. And then the 4th is the Atharva Veda, which is a collection of spells, incantations, and apotropaic charms and speculative hymns. The individual verses contained in these compilations are known as mantras. Some selected Vedic mantras are still recited as prayers, at prayers, religious functions, and other auspicious occasions in contemporary Hinduism. The various Indian philosophies and sects have taken differing positions on the Vedas. Schools of Indian philosophy which cite Vedas as their scriptural authority are classified as orthodox, astika. Other traditions, notably Buddhism and Jainism, which did not regard the Vedas as authorities, are referred to by traditional Hindu texts as heterodox or non-orthodox, nastika schools. In addition to Buddhism and Jainism, Sikhism and Brahmanism, many non-Brahmin Hindus in South India do not accept the authority of the Vedas. Certain South Indian Brahmin communities, such as Iyengars, consider the Tamil Divya Prabandham, or writing of the Alvar saints, as equivalent to the Vedas. Alright, so that's a bit about the Vedas, because we're reacting today to the Upanishads, which is the latest of the Vedic texts, as in the most recent of the Vedic texts, back in ancient times. So, what are the Upanishads? The Upanishads are a late Vedic Sanskrit text of religious teaching and ideas still revered in Hinduism. They are the most recent part of the oldest scriptures of Hinduism, the Vedas, that deal with meditation, philosophy, and ontological knowledge. Other parts of Vedas deal with mantras, benedictions, rituals, ceremonies, and sacrifices. Among the most important literature in the history of Indian religions and cultures, the Upanishads played an important role in the development of spiritual ideas in ancient India, making a transition from Vedic ritualism to new ideas and institutions. So the Upanishads that we're reacting to are the more up-to-date Vedic books. Of all Vedic literature, the Upanishads alone are widely known, and the central ideas are at the spiritual core of Hinduism. The Upanishads are commonly referred to as Vedanta. Vedanta has been interpreted as the last chapters, parts of the Veda, and alternatively as object, the highest purpose of the Veda. The concept of Brahman, which is the ultimate reality, and Atman, which is the soul, the real self, are central ideas in all of the Upanishads. And know that you are the Atman is their thematic focus. Along with the Bhagavad Gita and Brahma Sutra, the Mukhya Upanishads, known collectively as the Prasthanatrayi, provide a foundation for the several later schools of Vedanta, among them two influential monastic schools of Hinduism. Around 108 Upanishads are known, of which the first dozen or so are the oldest and most important, and are referred to as the principal or main Upanishads. The Mukhya Upanishads are found mostly in the concluding part of the Brahmanas and Aranyakas, and were for centuries memorized by each generation and passed down orally. The early Upanishads all predate the Common Era. 5 of them are in all likelihood pre-Buddhist, stretching down to the Maurya period, which lasted from 322 to 185 BCE. Of the remainder, 95 Upanishads are part of Muktika canon, composed from about the last century of first millennium through about 15th century CE. New Upanishads beyond the 108 in Muktika canon continue to be composed through the early modern and modern era, though often dealing with subjects that are unconnected to the Vedas. With the translation of the Upanishads in the early 19th century, they also started to attract attention from a Western audience. Arthur Schopenhauer was deeply impressed with the Upanishads and called it the most profitable and elevating reading which is possible in the world. Modern era Indologists have discussed the similarities between the fundamental concepts in the Upanishads and major Western philosophers. So, the Upanishads is what we're looking at today. That was a brief summary of the Upanishads. But, I also want to talk about Brahman, because I think a lot of people from other religions mistake Hinduism, as I was saying, for what Brahman means. So, let's just have a quick read of what Brahman in Hinduism is. Brahman, not to be confused with Brahma, the Hindu god, with a small g. Brahmana, or Brahmanism, or Brahmin, not to be confused with those things. Brahman connotes the highest universal principle, the ultimate reality in the universe, the God, the one supreme creator. In major schools of Hindu philosophy, it is the material, efficient, formal, and final cause of all that exists. It is the pervasive, infinite, eternal truth and bliss which does not change, yet is the cause of all changes. Brahman, as a metaphysical concept, refers to the single binding unity behind the diversity in all that exists in the universe, which is what they also teach in Law of One, the raw material. God, the creator, is the one constant behind all the diversity, the one uniting force, which means all diversity is united as one anyway. So Brahman is a Vedic Sanskrit word and is conceptualized in Hinduism, states Paul Dawson, as the creative principle which lies realized in the whole world. Brahman is a key concept found in the Vedas, and it is extensively discussed in the early Upanishads, which we're looking at today. The Vedas conceptualize Brahman as the cosmic principle. In the Upanishads, it has been variously described as Sat Chit Ananda, truth, consciousness, bliss, as well as having a form Sakar, and as the unchanging, permanent, highest reality. Brahman is discussed in Hindu texts with the concept of Atman, which is self, personal, impersonal, or Brahma Brahman, or in various combinations of these qualities, depending on the philosophical school. Atman meaning soul, basically. In dualistic schools of Hinduism, such as the theistic Dvaita Vedanta, Brahman is different from Atman in each being. In non-dual schools, as the Advaita Vedanta. Brahman is identical to the Atman, is everywhere and inside each living being, and there is connected spiritual oneness in all existence, which is what the Law of One teaches. We all have a soul. Our soul is all part of God, the one creator, the one creation, the infinite light that creates all of what we see. That is our Atman, that is our soul, and Brahman is the God, the creator, the being, the creator and the creation, which is the reason for all this being in existence. So, we now understand what Brahman is, but just to clear it up, because I know a lot of people look at all these different gods in Hinduism and they think, why are there so many different gods? Do they see all these different beings as gods? Well, in ancient Hindu texts, such as the Bhagavad Gita and the Hindu epics, they have gods fighting and warring and performing all these amazing things. They're controlling the weather, they're destroying cities, they're protecting people, they're flying through the skies in Vimana, in their flying craft. Now, who are these gods? These are gods with a small g. They are not Brahman, they are not God with a big G, the ultimate God, the creator. They are God with a small g. So I'll just read a bit about. Now, okay, so Brahma, which is a God with a small g, Shiva and Krishna. So Brahma is is seen as the creator God with a small g, Vishnu as the preserver God with a small g, and Shiva as the destroyer God with a small g. These three represent the three ultimate aspects of the one God, Brahman, the ultimate God: creation, preservation, and destruction, which go collectively into what Brahman is. So they represent the three aspects of Brahman, the ultimate creator. They were seen as mortals with a small g. Yeah, gods with a small g, not God. So I know in Hinduism you see some of them worshipping them, praying to them. There's a big argument in Hinduism with Orthodox and non-Orthodox, and you have like Shiva religions, and you have like Shiva sects and Vishnu sects. In Orthodox Hinduism, let's call it, these are just representation of God. They're not to be prayed to as God. You can pray to them in terms of what they represent in their individual aspects, which represent the one God, Brahman, but they're not to be prayed to as individual gods. So I'll just read this extract, which talks about the difference between Brahma, Brahman, etc. So it says, Brahma is distinct from Brahman. Brahma is a male deity in the post-Vedic Puranic literature who creates, he's the creator, but neither preserves nor destroys anything. He is envisioned in some Hindu texts to have emerged from the metaphysical Brahman, along with Vishnu, the preserver god, small g, Shiva, the destroyer god, small g, and all other gods and gods, goddesses, matter and other beings, with small g's, gods, goddesses, matter and other beings. In theistic schools of Hinduism, where deity Brahma is described as part of its cosmology, he is a mortal like all gods and goddesses. He is mortal. He's not God, he's not the ultimate creator, just like, similar to us, mortal, yeah? Gods with small g's, gods and goddesses, they are mortals. And dissolves into the abstract, immortal Brahman, ultimate God, when the universe ends, then a new cosmic cycle restarts. The deity Brahma is mentioned in the Vedas and Upanishads, but is uncommon, while the abstract Brahman, the ultimate God, concept is prominent in these texts, particularly the Upanishads, which we're going to read today. But yeah, I think that's very important to note, yeah? A lot of people mistake Hinduism for polytheistic, or they see how some people worship or pray to certain gods with small g, and they assume this is like idol worshipping or worshipping false gods and stuff like that, when really the Vedas and the Upanishads teach that they are aspects of the one God, the one creator. They were beings, mortal beings, who had godly great powers, but they are gods with a small g. They are not the God, the supreme creator. They are mortals, but with more highly spiritually advanced than us humans are, because they had powers to control the weather, destroy things, create things, all sorts. But they are not God. They are not the creator. All right, so had to clear that up before we got into it. Glad I cleared that up. So let's get into the text now. Alright, so the first 15 minutes of the Upanishads, which is the most recent part of the Vedas. This is from the Holy Spirit of Veda. The title of the video is the Upanishads, Pure Vedic Spirituality. Translation as it is in English through an audio book. So we're just going to listen to the first 15 minutes of the Upanishads from the Holy Spirit of the Vedas. Yeah, let's go.
The Upanishads. Isa Upanishad. Behold the universe in the glory of God, and all that lives and moves on earth. Leaving the transient, find joy in the eternal. Set not your heart on another's possession. Working thus, a man may wish for a life of 100 years. Only actions done in God bind not the soul of man. There are demon-haunted worlds, regions of utter darkness. Whoever in life denies the spirit falls into that darkness of death. The spirit without moving is swifter than the mind. The senses cannot reach him. He is ever beyond them. Standing still, he overtakes those who run. To the ocean of his being, the spirit of life leads the streams of action. He moves and he moves not. He is far and he is near. He is within all and he is outside all. Who sees all beings in his own self, and his own self in all beings, loses all fear. When a sage sees this great unity, and his self has become all beings, what delusion and what sorrow can ever be near him? The spirit filled all with his radiance. He is in...
Here they're talking about oneness, the law of oneness. For he who sees himself in all beings, for we are all souls, animating bodies and minds. You know, I know sometimes we feel that we are a body and a mind, and scientists say that our whole existence and our consciousness is just a configuration of our mind, when in fact all the teachings and all the evidence now is leaning towards the fact that we are a spirit animating a body and a mind, and these are just tools for our existence here. So if we are all spirits in a body, if we are all spirits with a mind and body to control, then are we not all the same? Are we not all one? We are all one. We are all one being. So that's really interesting first in the Hindu Vedas. Cool. Let's keep going.
Corporeal and invulnerable, pure and untouched by evil. He is the supreme seer and thinker, immanent and transcendent. He placed all things in the path of eternity. Into deep darkness fall those who follow action. Into deeper darkness fall those who follow knowledge. One is the outcome of knowledge, and another is the outcome of action. Thus we have heard from the ancient sages who explained this truth to us. He who knows both knowledge and action, with action overcomes death, and with knowledge reaches immortality.
I like that. They're saying you must act with knowledge and action, not just knowledge and not just action. Don't just know stuff and not do anything about it, and don't just act without knowing what you're doing. I really like that. That's really, wow, cool. Ancient Hindu philosophy right there from the sages. Yeah, and he who acts with knowledge will be immortal. So this is the holy way to act, basically is what they're saying. This is the exalted way to act. Cool, let's continue.
Into deep darkness fall those who follow the immanent. Into deeper darkness fall those who follow the transcendent. One is the outcome of the transcendent, and another is the outcome of the immanent. Thus have we heard from the ancient sages who explained this truth to us. He who knows both the transcendent and the immanent, with the immanent overcomes death, and with the transcendent reaches immortality. The face of truth remains hidden behind a circle of gold. Unveil it, O God of light, that I who love the true may see. O life-giving Sun, offspring of the Lord of creation, solitary seer of heaven, spread thy light and withdraw thy blinding splendour, that I may behold thy radiant form. That spirit far away within thee is my inmost spirit.
See, that's really interesting as well. In the Law of One, the raw material, they talk of our sun as sub-logos. Logos is basically the Greek word for love. They say that the Creator left it to the logos to create the conditions for each planet. So in the Law of One, they basically teach that there was life on Venus some time ago, but our sun, our logos, which they're saying in Hinduism, is the offspring of God, the Creator. In the Law of One, they teach that the sun, the logos, creates the conditions for each planet. So the conditions that he created for the people that were on Venus is very different for the conditions he created for the people on Earth. Wow, really, really interesting that is. Let's keep going. And yeah, in Hinduism they're saying that God, the spirit of God, is in the sun, and so the sun is like the sub-logos, the sub-creator of God, which ties in with the Law of One. Cool.
May life go to immortal life, and the body go to ashes. Om. O my soul, remember past strivings. Remember.
Here we've just heard of, well, not a hint, but we can see why Hindus cremate. They say the body is to go to ashes, and the eternal life the soul is to go on to eternal life. So yeah.
O my soul, remember past strivings, remember. By the path of good, lead us to final bliss.
Sorry, wow, there's a lot of information to get through here. I'm stopping it every second. Here they've just said, "Oh my soul, remember past strivings for us to get to the final bliss." So they're saying you must reincarnate over and over again, go through all your strivings, through all your different life, all your hardships, until you reach that eternal bliss, that level of consciousness and spiritual awakening, which will bring you bliss.
O fire divine, thou God who knowest all ways, deliver us from wandering evil. Prayers and adoration we offer unto thee. Kena Upanishad, Part 1. Who sends the mind to wander afar? Who first drives life to start on its journey? Who impels us to utter these words? Who is the spirit behind the eye and the ear? It is the ear of the ear, the eye of the eye, and the words. The mind of mind and the life of life. Those who follow wisdom pass beyond, and, on leaving this world, become immortal. There the eye goes not, nor words nor mind. We know not, we cannot understand. How he can be explained? He is above the known, and he is above the unknown. Thus have we heard from the ancient sages who explained this truth to us.
See, in Hinduism they're saying that God is beyond the known and the unknown. Very similar to Islam, to teach the knowledge which is unseen. You know, it's not so different to Islam, to Christianity, the unknown, the unseen, the knowledge of that.
What cannot be spoken with words, but that whereby words are spoken. Know that alone to be...
Which that cannot be spoken by words, but that which words are spoken. I ain't got to say no more. Come on.
Brahman, the spirit, and not what people here adore. What cannot be thought with the mind, but that whereby the mind can think. Know that alone to be Brahman, the spirit, and not what people here adore. What?
Know that to be Brahman, the spirit, and not what people here adore. So nothing paganistic, not worshipping of any lower gods, but Brahman, the ultimate god, the spirit, not what people here adore, but adore Brahman, you know? The ultimate god, the creator, the creation.
Cannot be seen with the eye, but that whereby the eye can see. Know that alone to be Brahman, the spirit, and not what people here adore. What cannot be heard with the ear, but that whereby the ear can hear. Know that alone to be Brahman, the spirit, and not what people here adore. What cannot be indrawn with breath, but that whereby breath is indrawn. Know that alone to be Brahman, the spirit, and not what people here adore. Part 2. Master, if you think I know well, little truth you know. You only perceive that appearance of Brahman that lies in the senses and is in you. Pursue your meditation. Disciple.
Okay, so the sages are saying that pursue meditation because you're only perceiving what you can see, what you can sense with the five senses, and the soul. Obviously, you can perceive your old soul within you because as the soul, you know, sometimes we hear our mind saying stuff which we don't agree with. It's not our opinions, our wants, our needs, our tendencies. So we can seriously sit and separate and say, "Whoa, look at the mind. That's not what I think. That's not what I believe. So what am I? I'm not the mind then. I must be something else. I'm the soul." So they're saying you can perceive yourself as the soul through your inner knowing of you having a distinct difference between the wants and needs and opinions and of the mind. So that's your inner knowledge of the soul, and through what you can sense with the outside world, they're saying that's part of the soul. But they say obviously pursue meditation to further that knowledge and that understanding of you as the soul. Cool.
I mean to know. I do not imagine I know him well, and yet I cannot say I know him not. Who of us knows this, knows him, and not who says, I know him not? He comes to the thought of those who know him beyond thought, not to those who imagine he can be attained by thought. He is unknown to the learned and known to the simple.
You hear that? You must know God not by thought, but by what cannot be thought. That which you cannot think of, that is God. Not what you can think of and surmise in your mind. So they say to the learned he is not known, because they're thinkers, they're intellectuals. To the unlearned, those who are not, maybe haven't been educated to that level of thinking and intellectualizing things, know God more, because it's what is not known through the mind, more than in totality of over what is known.
He is known in the ecstasy of an awakening which opens the door of life eternal. By the self we obtain power, and by vision we obtain eternity. For a man who has known him, the light of truth shines. For one who has not known, there is darkness. The wise who have seen him in every being, on leaving this life, attain life immortal. Part 3. Once upon a time, Brahman, the Spirit Supreme, won a victory for the gods. And the gods thought in their pride, we alone attained this victory. Ours alone is the glory. Brahman saw it and appeared to them, but they knew him not. Who is that being that fills us with wonder? They cried.
So here you're hearing about Brahman, as they say, appearing before the gods with small g's, because he's the ultimate god, the real creator, the supreme being, is appearing before the gods who have just won a battle, and let's hear what he's got to say to them. Or let's hear what God has to say to them. Sorry, you're not supposed to affix he and she and stuff to God, to Brahman. Let's hear what Brahman has to say to the gods.
And they spoke to Agni, the god of fire. O God, all-knowing, go and see who is that being that fills us with wonder. Agni ran towards him and
So they've sent Agni, the god of fire, to go and speak to Brahman.
Brahman asked, Who are you? I am the god of fire, he said, the god who knows all things. What power is in you? Asked Brahman. I can burn all things on earth. And Brahman placed a straw before him, saying, Burn this. The god of fire strove with all his power, but was unable to burn it. He then returned to the other gods and said, I could not find out who was that being that fills us with wonder. Then they spoke to Vayu, the god of the air.
So the god of fire has gone up to Brahman, the ultimate creator god, and Brahman, God, has told him, what power do you have? He says, I have the power of fire, I can burn anything on earth. Brahman gave him a straw to burn and he couldn't do it.
O Vayu, go and see who is that being that fills us with wonder. Vayu ran towards him, and Brahman asked, Who are you? I am Vayu, the god of the air, he said. Matarisvan, the air that moves in space. What power is in you? Asked Brahman. In a whirlwind I can carry away all there is on earth. And placed a straw before him, saying, Blow this away. The god of the air strove with all his power, but was unable to move it. He returned to the other gods and said, I could not find out who was that being that fills us with wonder. Then the gods spoke to Indra, the god of thunder. O giver of earthly goods, go and see who is that being that fills us with wonder. And Indra ran towards Brahman, the spirit supreme. But he disappeared. Then in the same region of the sky, the gods saw a lady of radiant beauty. She was Uma, divine wisdom, the daughter of the mountains of snow. Who is that being that fills us with wonder? He asked. Part 4. He is Brahman, the spirit supreme, she answered. Rejoice in him, since through him you attained the glory of victory. And the gods Agni, Vayu, and Indra excelled the other gods, for they were the first that came near Brahman, and they first knew he was the spirit supreme. And thus Indra, the god of thunder, excelled all other gods, for he came nearest to Brahman, and he first knew that he was the spirit supreme. Concerning whom it is said, he is seen in nature in...
Just to say, the spirit supreme, the supreme God, the ultimate reality, the ultimate creator. The lesser gods have now realized that they are not gods in that sense, but he is the supreme creator, the supreme being, Brahman.
the wonder of a flash of lightning. He comes to the soul in the wonder of a flash of vision. His name is Tadvanam, which translated means the end of love-longing. As Tadvanam, he should have adoration. All beings will love such a lover of the Lord. Master.
So Indra has become like the closest god with a small g to God Brahman. Okay.
Who asked me to explain the Upanishad, the sacred wisdom? The Upanishad has been explained to you. In truth, I have been telling you the sacred teaching concerning Brahman. Katha Upanishad. Part 1. Vajrasava gave away all his possessions at a sacrifice, but it was out of a desire for heaven. He had a son called Nachiketas, who, although he was only a boy, had a vision of faith when the offerings were given, and thus he thought, "This poor offering of cows that are too old to give milk, and too weak to eat grass or drink water, must lead to a world of sorrow." And he thought of offering himself, and said to his father, "Father, to whom will you give me?" He asked once, and twice, and 3 times. And then his father answered in anger, "I will give you to death." Nachiketas. At the head of many I go, and I go in the midst of many. What may be the work of death that today must be done through me? Remember how the men of old passed away, and how those of days to come will also pass away. A mortal ripens like corn, and like corn he is born again. Nachiketas had to wait 3 nights without food in the abode of Yama, the god of death. A voice. As the spirit of fire, a Brahmin comes to a house. Bring the offering of water, O god of death. How unwise is the man who does not give hospitality to a Brahmin. He loses his future hopes, his past merits, his present possessions, his sons, and his all. Death. Since you have come as a sacred guest to my abode, and you have had no hospitality for 3 nights, choose then 3 boons. Nachiketas. May my father's anger be appeased, and may he remember me and welcome me when I return to him. Let this be my first boon. Death. By my power your father will remember you and love you as before, and when he sees you free from the jaws of death, sweet will be his sleep at night. Nachiketas. There is no fear in heaven, old age and death are not there. The good, beyond both, rejoice in heaven, beyond hunger and thirst and sorrow. And those in heaven attain immortality. You know, O death, that sacred fire which leads to heaven. Explain it to me, since I have faith. Be this my second boon. Death. I know, Nachiketas, that sacred fire which leads to heaven. Listen. That fire which is the means of attaining the infinite worlds, and is also their foundation, is hidden in the sacred place of the heart. And death told him of the fire of creation, the beginning of the worlds, and of the altar of the fire sacrifice, of how many bricks it should be built, and how they should be placed. Nachiketas repeated the teaching. Death was pleased, and went on. A further boon I give you today. This fire of sacrifice shall be known by your name. Take also from me this chain of many forms. One who lights 3 times this sacred fire, and attains union with the 3, and performs the 3 holy actions, passes beyond life and death, for then he knows the God of fire, the God who knows all things, and through knowledge and adoration he attains the peace supreme.
Okay, you've gone over a little bit, onto 17 minutes, but I just wanted to hear that out. That's really, really interesting. The God of Fire is saying that, okay, so now I understand, if you know a bit about Hinduism, you'll see that in like their funeral services and some wedding services as well, they do like a ritual around a fire with these, like a three-pronged kind of ritual around fire, and this is because the god of death, god with a small g, the god of death, taught that the fire, the original fire, is what brought everything into creation. Now, I guess you could interpret that as the Big Bang. It's very easily interpretable as the Big Bang. Big explosion in space, big fire in space. And he said that that fire also exists within you, which is very reminiscent of the law of one, the Big Bang. We all come from that initial light, and that initial light still exists within us. Therefore, we are immortal, because if we were to die, then the Big Bang, the fire that created that infinite and ever-expanding 14 billion-year-old universe, if it lost one of its souls, one of its pieces of light, original fire that exists within us, then it would cease to be the 14 billion-year-old infinite and ever-expanding universe. Therefore, you cannot die, because the universe, the creation, the creator, Brahman, will not let you die, because that would change the very essence and makeup of the universe. So, wow, this is really, really great stuff, man. Really finding this eye-opening. As I said, I've studied Hinduism a bit before because my family are Hindu, but I didn't realise to this depth what they go into. I guess with my study of the law of one and Islam and Buddhism, I've been able to really interpret and gather what the messages were that were given, and obviously with the knowledge of science, the Big Bang and the original fire, it's just opening up a whole new world, man, and a whole new understanding. I know a lot of you came here for Quran reactions, and I will get back to them, but I think it's important that we look into all aspects of different religions. But yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. Carry on liking, subscribing, sharing. I shall be back soon. Won't be away for too long this time, I hope. But yeah, man. Love for the view. Keep watching. Keep interacting. Peace.